You can change a person's thoughts. You can twist their emotions. But real control begins when you no longer have to do either. When behavior itself moves on its own, trained, predictable, obedient. That's the quiet science of conditioning. The art of shaping response before thought even arrives. It's not about dominance or fear. It's about structure, repetition, reward. A system designed so you walk exactly where it wants you to go. You're listening to Soul Lull, where we quiet the noise of the day and awaken the mind of the night. The mind learns patterns. The body follows loops. And every habit, from the way you scroll your phone to the words you choose when you speak, is the result of unseen reinforcement. It starts small. A favor, a thank you, a button that glows just right when you press it, a notification that hums with reward. Every design, every tone, every repetition is a trainer with perfect patience. Because obedience doesn't need chains. It needs consistency, predictability, and a reason that feels like your own. You believe you're choosing, but the options were chosen for you. You believe you're free, but your patterns already know the path. Every system learns how you move, then shapes what comes next. And as long as the behavior feels voluntary, you'll never notice the architecture behind it. So this is not about fear. It's about comfort. It's about trust. About how the smallest cues can turn choice into reflex, and reflex into ritual. They don't command you. They train you. They build feedback loops, condition rewards, and polish the illusion of control, until you forget the difference between acting and being acted upon. And that's how obedience is born. Not through punishment, but through design. That's the foot-in-the-door technique. A psychological trap so quiet, it hides beneath politeness. The manipulator doesn't ask for everything, they just ask for a little. And once you open the door, even slightly, they don't need to push. You'll hold it open yourself. It works through a simple rule of the mind consistency. Humans want to appear stable, reliable, rational. If you agree to something once, your brain works hard to justify that agreement later. It whispers, "You said yes before, so yes must be the right choice now." Imagine this. A charity worker stops you on the street. They don't ask for money, they just ask, "Do you care about children's health?" You nod. Of course you do. Now the next question comes, would you sign this petition? And after that, would you donate just $5? The questions get bigger, but your commitment has already been trained. Marketers know this by heart. They give you free trials, knowing the hardest part is not keeping you, it's getting you to start. They make the first click easy, the first payment invisible. Once your identity is linked to the action, you defend it even when it no longer benefits you. It's how toxic relationships grow, too. Someone crosses a small boundary, says it was a joke. Then another, a little worse. You stay, because leaving now would mean admitting the first yes was a mistake. And the deeper you go, the harder it is to remember what no ever felt like. The foot-in-the-door effect isn't about pressure. It's about momentum. It doesn't force you, it convinces you to keep walking. Every step justified by the one before. Every choice defended by the story you tell yourself. You see it online, too. An app asks for notifications. Then, your location. Then, your contacts. Every permission feels reasonable because you already said yes to the first one. Soon, your behavior isn't controlled by fear, it's guided by pattern, by the rhythm of repetition, by the comfort of being consistent. That's the genius of this technique. It doesn't need deceit or domination. It uses your own values against you. The more moral, kind, or rational you try to be, the easier you are to steer. And the final stage? You no longer notice the requests at all. You start offering things before they're asked for. You predict what they want. You become self-regulating, the perfect subject. That's why the most powerful manipulation doesn't demand obedience. It teaches you to offer it willingly. So remember this. When something seems too small to matter, that's usually when it starts to matter most. Because control doesn't begin with commands. It begins with one word. Yes. Some doors are opened with kindness. Others, by slamming them first. That's the door-in-the-face technique. A psychological dance between rejection and relief. It doesn't begin with what they want. It begins with what you'll refuse. Picture this. Someone asks you for something outrageous. A huge donation. An impossible favor. A request that makes you recoil. You say no, of course you do. But before your mind can reset, they offer something smaller, more reasonable, almost gentle compared to the first blow. And now you say yes. Not because you changed your mind, but because your mind needed balance. Refusing twice feels cold, unfair, and we hate feeling unkind. This is the power of contrast. The first no makes the second yes feel humane. You're not agreeing out of logic. You're agreeing out of guilt. Salespeople use it all the time. They start with the expensive package, the full version, the premium subscription you'd never buy. Then they relent, offering you the cheaper, smaller option. Suddenly it feels like they've compromised. They seem fair, but in truth, they never wanted the first sale. Only the second one. It's the illusion of mercy. The manipulator gives you the chance to feel generous, to feel like you made the fair decision. But what you really accepted was control disguised as compromise. This effect thrives on reciprocity. When someone concedes, we feel pressure to match that kindness. They step back, so we step forward. They lower the price, so we raise our trust. It's why parents, teachers, and bosses use it too. Ask for the impossible, then settle for the difficult. You'll get what you wanted all along. Politicians craft it into lawmaking. Propose the extreme, knowing the compromise will pass easily. People cheer the moderation, unaware it was the goal from the start. Even in relationships, you'll feel it. One partner demands too much attention, forgiveness, devotion. Then they soften, ask for less, and you breathe in relief, not realizing you've already surrendered. The brain mistakes contrast for fairness. It doesn't see manipulation, it feels balance. And that's the genius of this trick. By making you say no once, they make sure you'll say yes next time. Because nobody wants to be cruel twice. Nobody wants to be the unkind one. And in that discomfort, obedience blooms. So next time someone asks for too much, Don't relax when they ask for less. That reasonable offer might be the real trap. Because in manipulation, the first door is never meant to open. It's meant to make the second one impossible to close. Some traps don't close all at once. They tighten slowly, click by click, while you're busy smiling. That's the lowball technique. A psychological sleight of hand where agreement comes first, and truth much later. It begins with an offer that feels perfect. Too good, maybe, but believable enough to make you lean in. A car dealer promises a special discount. A company advertises an incredible subscription rate. A person offers loyalty, friendship, love. And you say yes. You commit. You decide this is right. Then, just before it's sealed, the truth shifts. The discount expired. The terms changed. The promise needs adjusting. Now it costs a little more, demands a little more, takes a little more. But here's the key: you still say yes. Because your mind already made the decision. You've pictured the reward. You've built emotional investment around the first offer. To walk away now would mean admitting you were wrong. And the human ego would rather lose than reverse. That's the psychology of commitment escalation. Once we commit, we protect that commitment even from the truth. The lowball technique weaponizes that loyalty. Car sales, phone plans, dating apps, all master it. Only $29 a month. Until the hidden fees appear. Free for the first week. Until you forget to cancel. Let's take it slow. Until one day, you've built your life around a person who never had to keep their word. Even institutions play the game. Governments announce temporary measures. Companies adjust policies after you've signed the contract. You accept because the alternative feels like starting over. This tactic thrives on one weakness: consistency, pressure. We want to appear rational. We don't want to seem impulsive. So we convince ourselves the new deal is still the same deal, even when every part of it has changed. It's not deception by force, it's deception by momentum. Once you've invested your time, your words, your trust, the manipulator doesn't need to push anymore. You'll push yourself. It's the same trick that keeps people in bad jobs, toxic relationships, or failing projects. Because walking away means admitting your first yes was a mistake. And ego doesn't handle undoing well. So remember this. If an offer seems perfect, wait. See if it stays perfect when you pause. Because manipulation doesn't need to lie. It just needs you to agree before you see the whole picture. The lowball technique teaches one timeless truth. Control rarely starts with deceit. It starts with a promise you wanted to believe. Humans are wired to return what they receive. Kindness for kindness. Favor for favor. Debt for debt. It's called the Reciprocity Principle. The invisible rule that keeps society running, and the same rule that can quietly enslave it. It begins with a gift. A gesture so small, you'd never suspect it hides a hook. A free sample. A compliment. A helping hand when you didn't ask for one. It feels good, human generous. And your mind, built on ancient instincts, takes note. I owe them. That's the moment the leash is made. Because now, you're not just receiving, you're balancing a ledger you never chose to open. The manipulator doesn't demand repayment. They wait, patiently, until you offer it yourself. Because nothing drives human behavior faster than the need to erase an emotional debt. Salespeople use it when they hand you a free gift before the pitch. You feel compelled to listen longer, smile more, maybe even buy just to be fair. Charities use it when they send you address labels in the mail before asking for donations. It feels harmless, but it's not generosity. It's psychology. Even relationships fall into its rhythm. Someone showers you with affection, early messages, attention, effort. You feel chosen. But later, when they start to withdraw, you chase what they gave, desperate to restore balance. That's not love. It's conditioning. This principle taps into one of the brain's oldest scripts, social survival. In tribes, refusing to return a favor meant exile. So now, even in a world of screens and sales, your body still flinches when you owe someone something. Manipulators weaponize that reflex. They give not to give, but to own. The genius of reciprocity is that it never looks like control. It looks like kindness. It feels like warmth. And it traps you with gratitude instead of fear. It's why networking feels like friendship until it's a favor factory. It's why influencers gift products until you start promoting them for free. It's why cults feed new members before feeding them doctrine. The first rule of behavioral manipulation is this: you don't have to take someone's freedom away. You just have to make them feel thankful for the cage. So when someone gives you something you didn't ask for, pause. Ask yourself, is this kindness or currency? Because not every gift is a gesture. Some are contracts written in emotion, not ink. People think control is about force, but the strongest leash is built from your own words. That's the commitment and consistency principle. A silent agreement between your mind and your image. Once you've declared something a belief, a promise, a position, your brain will do anything to keep you aligned with it. Because breaking your own word feels like breaking your identity. The human mind craves coherence. We want to appear stable, logical, reliable to others, yes, but especially to ourselves. That's why manipulators don't beg for loyalty. They ask for commitment. Once you've declared, "I support this," or "I'm not that kind of person," your entire psychology bends to protect that sentence. Even when facts change. Even when it hurts. They don't need to force your obedience. They let your own consistency do the work. You see it in marketing. Those little checkboxes that say, "Yes, keep me updated." You see it in politics, where people defend leaders they no longer respect because admitting the mistake feels like defeat. And you see it in relationships, where someone stays long after the love has faded because they once promised, "I'll never leave." That's not love. That's commitment bias. And once it's anchored, it grows roots that reach deep into guilt, pride, and fear. Psychologists call it cognitive alignment. Your self-image fights dissonance. So instead of changing your actions, you change your perception. You rewrite reality just to stay consistent. It's why a gambler keeps playing to prove he was right to start. Why a soldier keeps fighting to prove the war was worth the blood. Why a person keeps defending a toxic ideology because they built their identity around believing it. Once the statement, "I am this," takes root, it becomes a compass, even when it points to ruin. Manipulators exploit that instinct masterfully. They get you to make a small public promise. Post something online. Take a stance. Agree, even silently, to a cause, a brand, or a belief. And then you'll defend it like a fortress. Because now, it's not about them, it's about you. The paradox of consistency is that it feels like integrity, but it can become a prison of your own making. The wisest people in history weren't the most consistent. They were the most willing to change. Because evolution is inconsistency. Growth is contradiction. To adapt is to admit that yesterday's truth may not fit tomorrow's world. So next time someone asks for a small public promise, pause. Ask yourself who benefits if you can never change your mind. Because in a world built on manipulation, your freedom won't be stolen. It'll be traded for the illusion of consistency. Words don't just describe you. They define the walls of who you think you are. That's the labeling technique. A psychological manipulation so simple it feels like flattery or kindness. But it's not meant to see you. It's meant to shape you. It begins with a name. You're so generous. You're such a good listener. You're the kind of person who always helps. These words feel warm, comforting. True, maybe. But now your mind has a new rule. That's who I am. And once you accept that label, you'll do anything to keep it intact. If someone calls you kind, you'll give, even when it hurts. If they call you loyal, you'll stay, even when you shouldn't. If they call you strong, you'll suffer in silence rather than ask for help. The manipulator doesn't need to control your actions. They just have to define the kind of person you think you are. Because once you believe the story, you'll act it out without question. Marketers do it when they tell you, you're a smart buyer. You'll prove them right by purchasing again. Politicians do it when they say, you're a true patriot. You'll defend their flag even when it covers lies. Influencers do it when they say, only confident people use this. And suddenly, your identity is for sale. It even happens in childhood. You're the responsible one. You're the quiet one. You're the troublemaker. Labels given before we can understand them. And by the time we grow, we don't remember who we were before the words. The mind fears losing identity more than losing truth. So when someone challenges your label, you defend it fiercely. Because it's not just a word anymore. It's you. This is why the labeling technique is so powerful. It doesn't demand obedience. It inspires it. You wear your own leash like a medal. It's used by abusers to keep control. You're too emotional. You always overreact. So you start apologizing for feelings that were never wrong. It's used by cults to erase individuality. You're chosen. You're special. You're saved. And suddenly, your worth depends on obedience. But the truth is, you are not your labels. They are mirrors built by others. Some reflect love. Some reflect control. The key is awareness. When someone tells you who you are, pause. Ask yourself, who benefits if I believe this? Because the easiest person to manipulate isn't the weak one. It's the one desperate to stay consistent with the story they've been told. You are not who they say you are. You are who you choose to become once you stop performing their script. The greatest trick of control isn't forcing behavior. It's making you believe it was your idea. That's self-perception nudging. A manipulation so refined it doesn't tell you who you are. It lets you discover it exactly as planned. It works because of a simple truth. We learn who we are by watching what we do. Smile often enough, and your brain decides you're happy. Help often enough, and it concludes you're kind. Buy often enough, and it whispers, you're the type who deserves this. Manipulators don't give orders. They create moments. Small, effortless actions that slowly write a narrative inside you. A brand asks you to try one sustainable product. A friend invites you to volunteer just once. A political movement asks you to post a single supportive story. And as you do, a pattern begins. Your mind connects the dots. If I do this, it must mean this is who I am. Soon, you no longer need persuasion. You've become the persuader. Social media lives on this principle. Every like, every share, every follow is a behavioral breadcrumb. Each one tells your brain a small story about identity. And identity is addictive. You start as someone exploring ideas. You end as someone defending them. Marketers know this dance well. They don't sell you the product. They sell you the self-image that comes with it. People like you choose this brand. And suddenly, you're not buying shampoo. You're buying confidence, sophistication, worth. Even relationships use it unconsciously. You're always the strong one. You're the only person I can count on. The more you act in line with that role, the more it becomes your nature. And the harder it is to step away. Self-perception nudging doesn't fight your will. It uses it. It gives you tiny choices, so your ego feels powerful, even while every option leads to the same destination. It's the architecture behind modern design. Default settings that save you time. Buttons colored to guide your eyes. Choices arranged so you always land where they want you. You think you're navigating. You're being shepherded. The brilliance of this tactic is that it creates stories, not orders. Stories you tell yourself about your kindness, your loyalty, your independence. Until those stories become a prison made of self-praise. Because the moment you say, "That's just who I am," you stop asking, "Who made me that way?" But, so when you notice patterns that always seem to lead in one direction, pause. Ask whose hands built the path beneath your feet. Because in the end, the subtlest control isn't the one that changes your mind. It's the one that convinces you the mind was never changed at all. Manipulation doesn't always sound like command. Sometimes it sounds like understanding. That's the power of pacing and leading. A psychological rhythm that begins with harmony and ends with control. It starts innocently. Someone matches your tone, your pace, your breathing. They laugh when you laugh, pause when you pause. You feel seen, safe, understood. That's pacing. The art of aligning with another person's emotional and physical state. It builds trust faster than words ever could. Therapists use it ethically to calm anxious patients. Negotiators use it strategically to lower defenses. But manipulators use it deceptively to gain entry into your inner world. Once they've matched your rhythm, they begin to shift it. Slightly at first. A slower breath, a longer pause, a change in tone, soft, deliberate, magnetic. Your subconscious, trained to mirror those around you, follows without question. That's leading. The moment your rhythm becomes theirs. It's used in sales when a seller mirrors your hesitation, then smiles just before the close, and you unconsciously mirror that smile back. It's used in seduction when someone mimics your gestures until their touch feels like your idea. It's used in politics when leaders speak the language of the people before guiding them somewhere new. Every dictator, every cult leader, every smooth manipulator knows this. You don't seize control, you earn rhythm. Humans crave resonance. We trust those who feel familiar. And once we sync, we follow. That's why you'll start nodding when someone nods at you. Why you'll smile when they smile. Why an entire crowd can rise in anger or awe, perfectly in sync, with no one ever saying, now. Pacing and leading turns connection into choreography. And the closer you feel, the easier you are to move. But this isn't always sinister. It's also how empathy works. It's how comfort spreads through presence. The danger comes when that rhythm is used not to understand you, but to guide you where you didn't plan to go. Because once someone controls the tempo of your emotions, they control the direction of your thoughts. You'll start believing that their calmness means safety, that their confidence means truth, and that your agreement means choice. So next time someone feels too in tune, too aligned, too effortlessly compatible, pause, breathe on your own. See if they still follow. Because in real connection, rhythm flows both ways. In manipulation, it only flows toward control. You've met people who made you feel instantly comfortable, like you'd known them forever. Like the conversation had already begun before you even said hello. That feeling isn't always fate. Sometimes it's technique. That's the mirroring and matching effect. A behavioral dance where someone copies the surface of your world to slip beneath it. It works because humans are wired to trust what feels familiar. When someone subtly imitates your gestures, tone, and pace, your brain releases signals of comfort. It says, this person is safe. They're like me. But that's the illusion. Because the person mirroring you might not be connecting. They might be collecting. It's used in sales. When the seller leans forward just as you do, nods when you nod, echoes your phrases like shared understanding. You feel resonance, but it's rehearsal. They're reflecting you to lower your guard. It's used in relationships too. When someone seems to share your humor, your music, your moods. When they finish your sentences. When every word feels mirrored in perfect rhythm. It feels magnetic, like two souls aligned. But sometimes that's not chemistry. It's calibration. This is how grooming works. How emotional predators slip past intuition. They study you until imitation feels like intimacy. And once you trust the mirror, you stop looking at what's behind it. Mirroring doesn't have to be malicious. Parents do it to soothe children. Friends do it naturally in deep conversation. It's empathy made visible. But like every tool of connection, it can become a weapon when used without honesty. Manipulators understand that trust isn't earned. It's mirrored. They copy the energy you crave most. If you want peace, they speak softly. If you want adventure, they move fast. If you want understanding, they echo your pain, until you mistake reflection for resonance. And that's how they enter. Through the door you opened, because you thought you recognized yourself on the other side. The science calls it nonverbal synchronization. Your brain sees similarity as safety. It lowers the walls of logic. And by the time you realize, your behavior is already following theirs. The best manipulators don't force emotions. They reflect them until you forget which ones were yours. So the next time someone seems perfectly in tune, when they mirror every word, every rhythm, every sigh, pause. Do something unexpected. Shift your tone. Change your rhythm. See if they adapt or stay true. Because truth has its own rhythm. It doesn't copy yours. It meets it halfway. Belief is not invisible. It leaves fingerprints. On the way we speak. On the way we move. On the way we treat each other until belief becomes behavior. That's the Pygmalion effect. A psychological mirror where expectation creates reality. It's named after a sculptor in Greek myth, a man who carved the perfect woman from stone, loved her so completely that she came to life. But in psychology, the sculptor isn't a man. It's belief itself. When someone expects you to succeed, you rise. When they expect you to fail, you stumble. Because the brain quietly adjusts to match the emotional climate it's raised in. Teachers discovered it first. When told certain students were gifted, they unconsciously gave them more patience, more attention, more smiles. Those students didn't just feel smarter, they became smarter. That's the power of belief. And that's the danger of it too. Because manipulators use the same principle not to lift you, but to mold you. They praise what serves them. They reward obedience with affection. They reinforce the version of you that fits their design. And slowly, you stop being yourself. You become who they think you are. This happens in relationships. You're so patient, they say, when what they mean is you tolerate their neglect. You're so mature, they say, when what they mean is you don't react to their disrespect. And every time they say it, you live up to it. Because you want to be loved. We all do. That's why the Pygmalion effect cuts both ways. It's how encouragement heals. And how manipulation controls. A cult leader calls followers chosen. A manager calls workers family. A partner calls you their rock. Each word shapes your reflection. And you start sculpting yourself to stay inside it. Belief becomes architecture. Expectation becomes prophecy. And before you notice, you're no longer sculpting your life. You're maintaining someone else's masterpiece. But here's the truth no manipulator wants you to know. Belief can shape you, but only if you accept the sculptor's hand. You can step back, redefine the gaze that's been defining you. Decide what your reflection becomes. Because the real art of life isn't living up to expectations. It's learning which ones to refuse. Every creature on earth learns the same way. Through reward and punishment. That's the oldest form of control known to nature. And it still rules you even now, behind your glowing screen. This is positive and negative reinforcement. The silent rhythm of pleasure and pain that shapes every choice you make. It's not magic. It's training. And every manipulator, from predators to platforms, knows exactly how it works. Positive reinforcement is simple. Do the thing, get the treat. A smile. A like. A notification that tells you someone saw you. It feels good. So your brain whispers, do it again. Negative reinforcement feels different but works the same. You do something to remove discomfort. Answer the text, anxiety fades. Finish the task, guilt dissolves. Please the manipulator, the silence ends. Either way, you're being trained. That's how social media works. Every sound, color, and vibration is a mini reward loop. You scroll ding, your brain lights up. You comment, heart dopamine drips like honey. You stop, the silence hurts. So you scroll again. That's not entertainment. That's operant conditioning. The same structure shapes relationships. A partner praises you when you please them, and withdraws when you don't. The warmth becomes a prize. The cold becomes correction. You start adjusting smiling when you're hurting, hiding truth to avoid distance. You call it keeping the peace. But peace built on fear isn't peace. It's training. This is why emotional abusers feel impossible to leave. Because they don't just break you with pain. They heal you with comfort. And your body starts to crave the person who controls the switch. The human nervous system learns through pattern. Reward and relief carve neural pathways stronger than logic. That's why you can know something is bad for you, and still come back for more. Advertisers weaponize the same circuits. A sale timer panic. A purchase relief. A loyalty badge pride. And suddenly, you're not buying a product. You're buying the end of a craving they created. In the end, every manipulator learns this truth. You don't need to control someone's thoughts. Just control what feels good and what hurts. They'll do the rest on their own. The only way to break it is awareness. Notice what gives you a hit of relief. Notice what triggers your guilt, your panic, your rush. Because if someone else owns your reward system, they already own your freedom. Addiction doesn't come from constant pleasure. It comes from maybe. That's the secret behind variable ratio rewards. The most powerful psychological schedule ever discovered. It was born in a laboratory with a lever, a light, and a hungry rat. Every time the rat pressed the lever, food appeared. Soon, it learned the pattern. Press reward. Simple. Predictable. But then the scientist changed one thing. The reward became random. Sometimes food appeared. Sometimes nothing. And suddenly, the rat couldn't stop pressing the lever. That's variable ratio conditioning. When rewards come at unpredictable intervals, the brain enters a loop of obsession chasing the next hit. Every slot machine runs on it. Every social feed is built upon it. Every manipulative relationship hides it. Because maybe is stronger than yes. The uncertainty itself becomes the hook. It's why gamblers keep losing but stay smiling. It's why you check your phone when there's nothing there. It's why that one person who only sometimes replies stays in your mind longer than the one who always does. Your brain is wired for patterns, but it loves broken ones even more. When it can't predict, it obsesses. The maybe becomes irresistible. The hit of dopamine doesn't come from reward itself. It comes from anticipation. So you scroll, refresh, gamble, chase not for what you'll get, but for the possibility you might. Manipulators use this like art. They give affection sporadically. They reward loyalty in bursts. They disappear, then return, missed you. And every unpredictable return strengthens the bond. That's why the most toxic people are the hardest to forget. Because they don't give you closure. They give you maybe. You start to crave them the way gamblers crave luck. Not because they make you happy, but because they make you uncertain. Casinos, apps, even employers use the same rhythm. Maybe you'll win. Maybe you'll go viral. Maybe this quarter you'll get the raise. And every maybe becomes a leash. Because randomness keeps hope alive. And hope, when manipulated, becomes the softest prison. To break free, you have to see the pattern beneath the randomness. You have to stop pressing the lever. Stop waiting for a response that's designed to arrive late. Because control doesn't come from predictability. It comes from attention. And if they own your anticipation, they own your time. Once upon a time, games were for joy. Now, they're for control. Welcome to gamification, the art of turning your life into a scoreboard. So you'll play when they want, how they want, for as long as they want. It sounds harmless, even fun. Badges, levels, streaks, rewards. You log in, you win. You log out, you lose progress. But look closer. Every game mechanic is a leash-painted gold. Gamification began as motivation science. Make learning fun. Make fitness rewarding. Make work engaging. But somewhere along the way, it evolved into behavioral economics. Now every app, platform, and brand uses game loops to shape you. Keep your streak. Reach the next milestone. Only 3 points away from elite status. Your brain doesn't see a task. It sees survival. You're not chasing joy anymore. You're chasing completion. A red dot. A glowing badge. A well done. That feels more real than your own reflection. That's the trick. Gamification turns effort into addiction. Progress bars replace purpose. And every reward keeps you from noticing. There's no finish line. Apps track your days active. Platforms reward your engagement. Companies call it user retention. But what it really means is, how long can we keep you inside the loop? Even relationships mimic it now. You text every day, and when they stop replying, it feels like you lost your streak. So you text again, not out of love, but to keep the streak alive. Because streaks aren't about progress. They're about loss aversion. You don't want to break it, because breaking it feels like failure. That's how they trap you. They make you fear stopping more than you love succeeding. It's not evil. It's elegant. And that's what makes it terrifying. Gamification hijacks your reward system, the same circuitry that evolution built for survival. Hunt becomes reward. Build becomes progress. Connect becomes belonging. Now it's scroll for dopamine, buy for a badge, repeat for validation. And all the while, the real game plays you. The truth is, you can't win a system that was designed without an end. But you can step away. You can decide that silence doesn't erase progress. That missing a day doesn't mean losing yourself. Because life isn't a streak. It's not meant to be optimized or gamified. It's meant to be lived, without levels, without leaderboards, without permission. Real control doesn't take choice away. It rearranges the room until one choice feels inevitable. That's the nudge, the quiet architecture of your decisions. It doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It simply designs your path. Imagine walking into a cafeteria. The healthy food is at eye level. The junk food is lower, harder to reach. You feel responsible for your salad, but the choice was never neutral. That's a nudge. No one forced you. You simply followed the environment's whisper. Governments use it to shape behavior. Companies use it to shape consumption. Apps use it to shape you. Every default setting is a message. Every recommended option is a direction. Every "Are you sure?" box is a gatekeeper. The illusion of choice keeps you calm, while the structure of choice keeps you controlled. This is the heart of modern manipulation. Not force. Design. When you sign up for an app, the box for share data is already checked. You could uncheck it, but you won't. Because the friction feels intentional. Your brain values ease over autonomy. And so you comply not out of submission, but out of convenience. That's how smart systems win. They don't argue. They arrange. The checkout page that adds protection by default. The donation screen that pre-selects an amount. The app that hides the delete account button 5 menus deep. Each choice feels yours, but it was chosen for you long before you arrived. Even people use nudging. A partner who sighs when you talk to someone else. A friend who praises your obedience, then frowns when you resist. They don't forbid you. They guide you one emotion at a time. That's the genius of choice architecture. It doesn't fight your free will. It uses it. The environment becomes the manipulator. The layout becomes the leash. And the most obedient subject is the one who feels free. The hardest part? You can't see it. Because you're not meant to. Every app, every form, every screen has been tested. Not for your satisfaction, but for your compliance. You think you're choosing. You're being steered. But here's the truth. A nudge only works when you stop noticing the hand. The moment you see the design, the spell breaks. So when a decision feels too easy, pause. Ask yourself, who benefits from my comfort? Because free will isn't about how many options you have. It's about knowing which ones were built for you, and which ones were built to contain you. Control doesn't always come with chains. Sometimes it comes with comfort. A soft voice that says, "It's just a small favor." A button that says, "Continue." A world designed to reward obedience and call it convenience. That's how it works. Step by step, click by click, 1,000 small yeses that build the walls of your own cage. The tactics you've heard: foot in the door, reciprocity, commitment, labeling, self-perception, pacing, mirroring, Pygmalion, reinforcement, nudging. They're not random tricks. They're one system. A behavioral architecture that shapes the rhythm of obedience. You've lived inside it all your life. In classrooms, in companies, in relationships, even in yourself. Because manipulation doesn't start in the world. It starts in the mind, in that quiet place where fear and reward argue, and habit wins. But awareness breaks rhythm. When you see the pattern, you can stop the dance. You'll notice the pauses between rewards, the spaces between flattery and expectation, the subtle phrasing that turns agreement into identity. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's what they fear most. Not rebellion. Recognition. Because every manipulator, from governments to lovers, from algorithms to ideologies, depends on one illusion: that your reactions belong to them. But the truth is simpler. They don't. Your mind is not programmable code. It's a living field capable of rewriting itself. And if they can use psychology to control, you can use awareness to reclaim. So breathe. Step back from the screen. Let silence return to your thoughts. Because freedom doesn't begin when you escape the system. It begins when you see the system and choose not to move when it tells you to.